Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and the mercy and blessings of Allah be with you all. Thank you for joining me for this live post. I'm just getting set up now, and I hope that everything is working well. Please let me know if anything doesn't seem right, the video or audio. I'll be looking at your comments from time to time to make sure that everything is going well. So in the meantime, I am heading into my reading of Mark's Gospel. I'm opening Bible Hub here, BibleHub.com. I go to Mark chapter 16. 16, yes. Sorry for the late start. As you can see, I have a different background today. That's because I'm at the office and my usual setup is at home. And normally at home, I have everything set up. I just go there. That's all I do. And here at the office, I had to move things around and get everything set up. And still, I'm not sure that everything is set up absolutely right. But you will tell me if everything looks good. So, Mark chapter 16, verse number 1. I'll go to the Berean Study Bible. And here. So I'll read. And okay, so I see Saad Faz telling me that the video sounds good. Walaikum salam, brother Saad. And Akib Zaman. Let me see, why is it I'm not able to read your full comment? Saying salam, sir, and because you didn't see anything is wrong, I take it that everything must be okay. And walaikum salam, Akib. And I'm looking to see if anyone has shared the post. No one has shared it yet, but please do share it if you think that this is beneficial. So let me start reading then. Mark chapter 16, verse number 1. The subject heading says that this is about the resurrection. And we'll see. So verse 1. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so they could go and anoint the body of Jesus. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they went to the tomb. They were asking one another, who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, even though it was extremely large. When they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He's not here. See the place where they put him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So the women left the tomb and ran away, trembling and bewildered. And in their fear, they did not say a word to anyone. Now, the Berean puts it that last sentence there differently than I expected, and that they've built some interpretation into that. So this last sentence here, and in their fear, they say they did not say a word to anyone. What they want to leave open here in this translation is that they want to leave open the possibility that after the women's initial fear subsided, they went ahead and told other people, and that will help this gospel to reconcile with the other gospels. But we will read from another translation, and we will see that they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. You see, that's the whole point. And that's what causes this gospel to contradict the others. Well, of course, that's not putting it the right way. It's not that this gospel contradicts the others. It's that the others contradict this one, because this one came first, according to most scholars. And Matthew and Luke, writing later on, they reword this last statement in their gospels so that the women do go and tell the disciples. So I see that in the meantime, Brian has shared my stream. Thank you, Brian. Now, let's go to another translation and see what it says. Instead of Berean Study Bible, let's go to NIV, for example, New International Bible, New International Version. And verse number 8, it says, "Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid." So this seems to be like the end of the matter for Mark's gospel. And later on, as the New International Version Bible points out here, the earliest manuscripts and some other ancient witnesses do not have verses 9 to 20. So somebody came later and inserted verses 9 to 20 into this gospel in the judgment of most scholars. And that's why it's marked off separately in the New International Version Bible. That's why that whole section was delineated to a footnote in the Revised Standard Version, the 1952 edition. So when we look at this then, what do we see? Let's look at these verses. So the women come early on the Sabbath, when the Sabbath was over. This means that if Jesus was hung on the cross on the Friday and he expired by the end of the day, and then they hurriedly put him in a tomb because the Sabbath had begun, or was beginning, that is the Friday night, and then he was there all Saturday, so the women are waiting until the Sabbath is over. Now, when the Sabbath is over, that would be like Saturday at what we call Maghrib time, or sunset time. And so the Sabbath would be over, but it is still, I mean, even though the sun has set, there is still some degree of light on the land. This is why, in Ontario, the law, as I know it, is that you are required to put on your headlamps when you're driving a car. You're allowed to keep it off up to half an hour after sunset. So half an hour to sunset is then required. That means, in that half an hour after sunset, there is still some light in the land. You can still see your way to get around. In Islamic tradition, it is noted that after the people prayed their sunset prayer, the Maghrib prayer, they could go out and shoot an arrow, and they can see where their arrow fell. So it's one gospel, the gospel according to Matthew, seems to have it that the women went to the tomb that Friday night within that little bit of lighted period. But in Mark's gospel, it is very early on the first day of the week after sunrise. So this is like Sunday morning. It's not the Saturday night. It is the Sunday morning, definitely in Mark's gospel. But Matthew and Luke are going their own way with this. They're largely following Mark's gospel, almost line by line, but they're modifying as they go. And in John's gospel, there is no question of the women coming to anoint the body of Jesus with spices, because John's gospel shows that Jesus' body was already anointed fully with spices, 100 pounds of spices, by two followers, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus. And we know from the gospels, especially Luke and John, that the women saw where Jesus was being laid. They saw the whole operation, apparently. They would have known that the body of Jesus was already anointed with spices. So in Mark's gospel, on the contrary, they're buying spices and they're coming to anoint the body of Jesus. A touch of this is in Luke as well. But that is not in alignment with John's gospel. So if one were to go step by step, one would see many ways in which the Gospels do not give the same story. Here, for example, Jesus is said to have already told them that he will go ahead of them to Galilee. So the angels are saying, tell the disciples and Peter, he's going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. So they're to go to Galilee. But in Luke's gospel, they're to stay in Jerusalem. And all of the scenes in which Jesus is appearing to his disciples will occur in Jerusalem in Luke's gospel. And the disciples are specifically told to stay in Jerusalem until they receive the promise. And that comes some 50 days after the crucifixion event at what is called Pentecost. So Luke has to do something with the speech of the angels. The angels are saying, go to Galilee, just as he told you. But in Luke's gospel, it's not go to Galilee. It's let's have a quick look at Luke's gospel and see what Luke is saying here. So we go Luke chapter 24. Luke chapter 24. So Luke chapter 24 is following from Mark chapter 16, almost line by line. But when it comes to this part about where the angels tell the women what to tell the disciples, the angels are quoted as saying, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" This is verse number 5. Then verse number 6, "He's not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." So, and then verse number 8, "Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb," this is verse number 9, "they told all these things to the 11 and to the others." So you see that Luke has fixed a number of issues here. One is that they're not going to Galilee. They're going to stay in Jerusalem. And it's not go to Galilee as he told you. It's remember how he told you while he was in Galilee. See, the wording of the angels is changed here in Luke's gospel. And whereas in Mark, they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid, in Luke's gospel, they go and they tell this to the disciples, to Peter and the 11. So you see a change in the story, and this is what happens as we go from one gospel to another over time. Mark's gospel is said to be written the first of the four, and then Matthew and Luke closely following Mark but making some modifications. John is a complete rewrite, to a large extent a rewrite of the gospel, and in John's gospel we have many more and significant changes. But sticking with Mark's gospel, which was our intention, so we complete our discussion of Mark for at least the gospel in the most reliable manuscripts for today. And then next week we will look at what is referred to as the longer and shorter endings of Mark that goes beyond verse number 8. But in the earliest and most reliable manuscripts, we have the ending at verse number 8. And then this creates a puzzle. Like, why is it that Mark ended his gospel in this particular way? Why didn't he describe the appearances of Jesus? Well, one theory is that in Mark's gospel, the idea is that Jesus may have been risen from the tomb, like from the tomb itself. God may have translated him into heaven, and this would have been an earlier view than the view of Mark himself. But Mark is reporting the narrative as it was constructed to support that view that from the tomb Jesus' body was translated into heaven. That's why his tomb is found empty, and there is no description here of Jesus appearing to his disciples. That description will come in the appendices to Mark's gospel, which were added by later hands, and in the rewrite of Mark's gospel by John, and already in the revisions of Matthew and Luke. So both Matthew and Luke will go their separate ways in describing what we call post-resurrection narrative scenes, and John's gospel does this in his own way. Now, as you can hear, the adhan is being called in the mosque where I am, so soon I'll have to go join the prayer as well, and I need more time to get ready for the prayer as well. So I will stop there for today, and I will look at your questions and your comments and try to answer any questions that you may have. And then next week, God willing, we will come back and deal with the appendices, which in their own way are trying to show that Jesus actually resurrected from the dead. But as scholars have pointed out, in Mark's gospel, if we take away this verse that says that the angel said, "Go to Galilee, there you will see him," and another verse from Mark chapter 14, where there is that prediction itself that Jesus is telling them, "After I'm risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee," then we find in Mark's gospel an earlier narrative which supported the idea that Jesus might have been resurrected from the tomb. Not so much resurrected, that would not be the correct term here. The correct term would be translated into heaven, or assumed into heaven, where God would have taken Jesus from the tomb directly into heaven. Whereas the other Gospels have it that Jesus came out of the tomb, he met with his disciples, he sat with them, he ate with them, they touched him and examined his wounds and all of that. and eventually God raised him up into heaven. Well, so Luke's gospel. In Matthew's gospel, it doesn't seem like he's being raised up. It looks like he's here forever. He says, I'm with you always till the end of time, or at the end of the ages. In John's gospel, he says at one time, I have not yet arisen to the Father. So apparently there will be a rising, but it's not described in John's gospel. And it looks like he's going away and coming back, but the actual going away is not described. So you can see that each one of the Gospels are going their separate ways with this. But Mark's Gospel shows us evidence of an earlier time when people believed, not that Jesus came out of the tomb and met with his disciples, but that he was translated or assumed into heaven. And that makes an important difference, because often our Christian friends will ask us Muslims, if you say that Jesus did not resurrect from the dead, as Christians are claiming, how do you explain all of those reports? Well, we can easily now say that seeing the way that Mark's gospel ended without describing those narratives in which Jesus appears to his disciples and interacts with them, seeing that is a later addition, and seeing that the earlier story was that Jesus was translated directly from the tomb, then we are not rejecting anything that Christians should want to hold on to, because Christians, like Muslims, want to get to the bottom of this. They want to get to the original story, and this is the earlier version of the story, not necessarily the original, but an earlier version. So you can see the story is taking stages. An earlier version has it that Jesus' tomb is found empty, and the reason for that is obviously because God translated him from the tomb up into heaven. So he's not among the dead, he has been taken up. Whereas the later narrative wants it that Jesus comes out and his body is verified, and then he is raised up into heaven. So when the Quran says about Rafa'ahu Allah ilay, God raised him to himself, that's compatible with the idea that God raised Jesus directly from the tomb, translated him into heaven, because the Quran gives no details about how and when God raised Jesus from the dead. And by the way, the Quran doesn't even say if it was in spirit only or whether it was in body and spirit. So I'll leave the discussion there for today. We consider now that I've concluded my discussion of Mark's Gospel, all 16 chapters, and next week, God willing, I will look at the appendices to Mark's Gospel, the longer ending, the shorter ending. Mark chapter 16, verses 9 to 20, for example. Okay, so Scepter Ronald saying, according to the Quran, all the stories regarding Isa is lies. Well, no, not really. Not all the stories. The Quran confirms much of what is there before in the Gospels. Okay, Abdi Awad Musa saying, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Shabir Ali. Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Abdi. And we go to Brian Canonigo. And so I hope I say your name correctly, my brother. Otherwise, please forgive me. Dr. Ali, I always watch your video. Now I'm watching from Philippines, mashallah. And it's early morning there in the Philippines. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your diligence and your interest in what I have to say. Okay, Maki Adams, that's literally not true. Yes, the Injil is not the modern New Testament gospel, but we don't know what was pulled from the Injil in the various Gospels and what wasn't in fact. In fact, several instances of Isa's life that are mentioned in the Quran are mentioned in some of the existing Gospels. Lying against the Quran or Allah is dangerous for yourself and others. So I guess you are replying to, you are replying to Septa Ronald. Okay, good. Good point. Saad Faz, understood, brother. Okay, thank you, brother Saad. And Brother Muhammad Ali saying, Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Jazakallah khair. Okay, and thank you, my brother. All right, and Saad is Okay, still replying to SEPTA. So, those are all of the comments that it looks like I need to deal with today. I didn't block anyone today. I specifically, I mean, I may have blocked some people in the past. Sorry about that. I don't like to block people. But anyway, I was going to say that I didn't set any filters so I should have seen all of your comments today. So I trust that I've dealt with them all. If I haven't, please excuse me and forgive me. Nothing deliberate or intentional. I just go by what I see. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Sorry it's been a bit shorter than usual because I had this time struggling to set up everything well enough. And I'm still not sure that I did everything well enough here, but I hope you will forgive any lapse or anything that doesn't look right. And I look forward to seeing you again before long. Please continue to join me and to support my humble work. You can support my work by going to my website, shabirali.com. That's where you can send me a question or you can also make a donation. Peace be with you. Jazakumullah khairan. I appreciate you, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you and all of your loved ones, all of the people around you. And may Allah keep you all safe from COVID-19 and from every other sickness and disease and stress and distress. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us together in person to meet in this world and to meet as friends under the shade of His throne on the day of judgment and to be in paradise forever. Again, Jazakumullah khairan. Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa